We're so excited that you're joining us. My name is Glenn Underhill. I am the Executive Director for Disciple First. We're a ministry that exists to really help equip leaders to really live, lead, and leverage their influence to igniting movements of multiplication. And so I'm so excited that you're joining us today. I'm excited about the topic that we're talking about, really helping to raise the evangelistic temperature in your church, which is obviously all wrapped around being a disciple-making church.
Yeah, hey everybody, Craig Etheredge here. I'm the pastor at First Colleyville Church that's in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we're just about 5 minutes away from the airport, right in the heart of the metro area. And man, we're just working really hard, just like you, to lead every generation to know and follow Jesus. And so it's my joy to pastor this church. Also, I'm the founder of Disciple First. And so we take a great delight in working with pastors and leaders across the country.
And so my name is Josh, and I am Josh McCasland. I'm the community engagement pastor here at First Colleyville. I get to love people from the street to the seat. And so I get to love people out in the community and really get to take the gospel out. We get to mobilize our people, get to help train our people in sharing the gospel and having spiritual conversations.
I know that you guys really worked hard at First Colleyville to think about how do we raise the bar at First Colleyville in order to really reach people who are far from God. Josh, in light of that, so why, I mean, you're this idea of community engagement pastor. People are, as you said, people are always like, what does that mean? So why community engagement? What was the why behind that?
Yeah. So community engagement is just, it seems like it should be simple for us to be able to say, hey, let's go out and love our community. But at churches, and especially as you're growing and the bigger that you get and the staff and just the programs that you have, a lot of times it's really hard to mobilize people out into the community with the gospel and do it in a strategic way. It usually gets choked out by a lot of different reasons, trying to get people in Bible studies or Sunday schools or connect groups, or you're really trying to just what I like to call the aquarium. Sometimes you're just trying to take care of the aquarium. And then when you step out into the community, a lot of times it just seems like the sea, the deep blue sea, where it just is daunting and there's a ton of need. And where do you start? And then once you start there, man, is it going to be too much? Is it going to take us away from our mission? And so, but at the end of the day, man, Jesus, and through, the great commandment is just to go and to make disciples and baptizing them. And so, man, if we're not going out and we're not, making disciples and sending people out and encouraging people to share their faith and coming to a faith in Jesus, then you're losing the essence of really why we do church. And why we do the ministry that we do is because of what Jesus has done in our life. And so really trying to get people out there is what's important, and helping them engage the people in which they live and they work and they play. So that's really kind of the why behind we do what we do.
Yeah, and I know that why really impacted this idea of what community engagement is and what it's not. Craig, do you have any thoughts on, when you think about this idea of community engagement, what is it and what is it not?
Yeah, so I think historically, when you look at community engagement, some people are a little nervous about it because of the social gospel implications back in the 50s and 60s. People said, oh, well, they're engaging their community, and so it was all about social justice or social gospel, but not much gospel, right? It was all social issues, but not much gospel. And you saw a lot of, back in the 50s and 60s, you saw a lot of churches, even denominations, really kind of sell their soul to engaging and caring for the poor and the needy and so on, which is a good thing to do. Jesus said the poor is always with us, and Jesus was certainly compassionate on the poor. You can't really look at the scriptures, especially the Proverbs, with over and over being reminded of God's heart for the poor, and yet they kind of abandon the gospel with it, and they've almost replaced it. And we're seeing what happened in the 60s and 50s. We're seeing a resurgence of that now with social justice issues, where a lot of these same denominations have kind of lost the gospel, so they're just replacing it with activism, with social activism. So when we talk about community engagement, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about social gospel, social activism necessarily. What we are talking about is connecting with people in your local community that are hurting, that are in need, that serve your local community. And how do we take Jesus to them? How do we build bridges? How do we build relationships? And how do we unapologetically share the hope of the gospel in those relationships? That's what we're talking about. So it's not social justice activism. It is a way to intentionally engage with people outside your building that need the gospel and need to see in tangible ways the love of Christ, and to engage in spiritual conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's so incredibly important to understand what it is and what it's not. And because when we think about evangelism, obviously we look to Jesus as our model for how to make and multiply disciples. And as as you guys were really contemplating this idea of community engagement, I know that you were focused on Jesus' style of community engagement. So Josh, I'd love for you just to kind of unpack that a little bit and just kind of talk us through that. Because again, we always want to go back, not what's our idea, but how did Jesus do this community engagement piece really well?
Yeah. So I mean, he was meeting needs constantly. And so very similar to what Craig had said, there's a place in it for us really going out and seeing what the needs are, hearing what those needs are, and really getting in the mix of the community and learning where we can be involved in that. But there's also the piece of how do we not just engage in providing the physical needs, but for the spiritual needs as well. And so helping our people go out, not just to give a handouts or just to lend a helping hand. It's for us, how do we take our conversations and move them from a place of, hey, getting just to get to know someone, to helping have these meaningful conversations that lead to spiritual conversations that lead to the gospel. That becomes a central focus and a driving point for us as we are going out and helping provide the needs for the community. Because as we know that the physical need, that's a somewhat temporary need, but there's a spiritual need that is an eternal need. That's what we're empowered with. That's what we've been given. That's what we've been trusted with, is that message. And so we get to go do that. And so there's a lot of different ways in which we do that. And I'll tell you this, the community, we have what we call 5 pillars in our community. We have businesses, schools, hospitals, law enforcement, and first responders, and city government. Those are the pillars that we've really called the pillars of our community. And those pillars, they want the same thing. They want to provide for the needs of the community. The people that are brokenhearted, that are down, that are out, that are, don't have much. Man, when they start to get their needs provided for, then a lot of times whatever it is that they're doing, their job becomes a little easier, and and they're getting success in their area. So we like to partner with them in those pillars, and helping in making sure that the needs are met in the community, for the sake of the opportunity to be able to share the gospel and to be able to share the hope that we have that goes beyond just a piece of bread. And so that's kind of that's the 5 pillars are really important for us in our communities.
So say those 5 pillars again.
Yeah. So businesses, schools, hospitals, law enforcement and first responders, and city government.
Yeah, that's good.
Every community has got those, right? So no matter where you are, if you're in a small little town, I grew up in a small little town, or whether you're in a big metro, every community has those pillars. And so it's a great way to begin to identify who you can start to minister to. Glenn, I'd like to just kind of back up to the Jesus style for just a minute. You know, when you look at what Jesus did in Luke 4 and Luke 5, you have Jesus has just called his disciples to follow him, and he will make them fishers of men. And he jets out into engaging his community. You know, the first one is he frees a demon-possessed man in the synagogue. But after that, everything else happens in the community. You know, he heals Peter's mother-in-law, and then the whole town comes out, and he's healing and he's ministering. And then he's in the business environment when he tells Peter to throw out his net for a catch in the morning, and he gets a miraculous catch. And then he's engaging with the lepers, and he's engaging with the crippled man that's roared through the roof, and he's engaging with Matthew and Matthew's co-workers. It's interesting. Jesus didn't say, okay, I'm going to be at XYZ synagogue and everybody come to my synagogue, right? He was out ministering. And I think at the very outset, he was demonstrating to his disciples that you must go. You must go to where people are. You must engage where people are. And somehow in the attractional methodology of churches today, it's always about come to us and not us go to you. And I think there's a balance. There's a come and see, but there's also a go and tell. And I've had people say, well, which is it? And I always say, yes, it is both. And I think you have to have a balance in that. And so I do think we see this in Jesus' life, this going, interacting with hurting people, meeting them at their need. If it's Jairus' daughter that's dying, if it's a woman that's bleeding, if it's a leper that needs to touch, Jesus is moving out. And his church, if we're following Jesus, then we should have that same outward mentality.
I definitely agree with that, because as you look throughout the Gospels, you see Jesus interacting with community leaders, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. The royal official, the centurion. I mean, these were community oriented people that had needs. And Jesus addressed them specifically, and really probably to the probably at first the disciples saying, "What are you doing? I mean, why would you ever want to address these city officials because of who they are?" But man, he took it head on, and he really vested his life into being in the community and really making an impact with people within the community, and especially in those five pillared areas.
I'd like to jump in, just make one comment, Glenn. Back when I was in Oklahoma City, the church was in a very transitional neighborhood. It was very incredibly ethnically diverse, incredibly socioeconomically diverse. I mean, it was just all over the map. And most of the churches in those areas were not thriving. They were dying because they were not engaging in their local community. And I remember when we made a strategic move, and it was a risky move to start engaging in the community, not everybody in the church was happy about that. A lot of them, kind of like what Josh said, like the aquarium, they don't want to get out into the ocean. And they were not happy about engaging the community. So I just want to say that on the outset. It sounds really good and certainly biblical, but when you get to actually doing it, sometimes you may find some resistance. But what we did find is when we started to engage our local community, prayer walk our neighborhoods, build relationships, meet needs, share the gospel, that what we found is through doing that within a disciple-making framework, we saw incredible growth. We saw more people saved, more people come to Christ. I'll never forget a guy asked me, he said, "Craig, if your church shut its doors, would the community even notice that you were gone?" And that was a really driving question. And I think every church, if it shut its doors, the community should grieve over that, because that compassion, that love, and that outreach is gone. For most churches, most folks won't even notice. And so that's a great question just to ask yourself, would my community know if we shut our doors? And if not, then hey, there's room to grow. There's opportunity to get in the game, so to speak, and really begin to engage our community.
Yeah, and leverage it really well. Josh, I know that one of the things that you guys think about a lot is this terminology called triangulate. Can you kind of just, I know people hear that and they're like, what does it have anything to do with community engagement? But I love it because I think it language shapes culture. And obviously this word's super important as we're thinking about the strategy of community engagement. So can you just kind of lean into that a little bit for us, kind of unpack it and help us understand when we use that word, what does that mean and how does that affect community engagement?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do, we call it Love Local Week here, and we try to mobilize all of our connect groups, all of our groups of people to go out and to serve in the community. A lot of times we'll create big events where people can come serve, but a lot of times we want our community, our connect groups to really get out in the community and kind of continually do that without us having to like organize it for them, to where they really take some ownership. But one of the things that we really do in that environment is to say, hey, listen, there's all these pillars that we want to work with. And as you are doing an event or as you're doing some service opportunity, look at how you can involve these different pillars. And so businesses are one ways that we triangulate with whatever it is that we are doing. Hey, if you're going to do a car wash for single moms, then find a local business that has that will maybe donate a free oil change to single moms, or a place that will actually donate the supplies for the car wash, and then therefore now you're actually promoting those businesses as well, and then you're also giving those singles moms some great resources, and then all of a sudden now you're really working within just not just doing everything yourself and trying to be the hero, right? A lot of times if we can make other businesses and places in the community the hero, that in return actually opens up doors to be able to share the gospel more in a way that people are like, why are you doing it like this? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you care so much? And it gives you an opportunity to open up into different conversations. But we like to use, we try to think about our pillars in the process of whatever it is that we're doing. So like if we are ever doing we just handed out a bunch of backpacks in our community recently. Our law enforcement was there handing out kind of goodie bags and stuff too, and shaking the hands in the community. We had businesses that were donating waters and supplies and things of that nature. You almost hit every one of the pillars that we have that were there trying to help in that just opportunity to give back and to give to some under-resourced families. But again, we were serving alongside some of the pillars in our community. And so we want to constantly be thinking, not like, hey, how can we do this and help them and then have this agenda of sharing the gospel? It's like, how can we get the community together and make this a good thing for the community, so that we not just are sharing with the people who are under-resourced, but we're also sharing with people who are serving our communities on a regular basis as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Glenn, kind of think of it a triangle, okay? So you have the church up here, you have a partner, which would be a business or a school or a hospital or a fireman or, city government over here. And then you have a need over here. And what you want to do is to connect all these three together. So instead of the church is going to meet the need, if we could work with a business to together meet that need, then everybody wins, because the business wants to give back to the community. They get the promotion out of it. We get the relationship with the business leader as well as the people that we're ministering to. And then the person that gets the need met also wins, because they're getting church to help them, but they're also getting other local partners to help them. So that three, the need, the group that you're trying to service, the church, and a community partner, which would be a business or city government, first responders, that type of thing, schools. If you can get those three all involved in a project, then you're really maximizing your impact. and you're doubling up, tripling up your impact and your influence. So when we talk about triangulate, a lot of times churches will just go mow yards to help people. That's great. But if you can get somebody else to help buy the gas to mow the yard, then now you've got more people involved in the project. You're building more bridges. And also, a lot of times people look at a church and they go, well, the church is only in it for them. And so partnering with the business or with the school or with the fireman or with the policeman to meet a need shows that, hey, we're not in it for us. We're here serving alongside other pillars in our community to bring about something good in our community. And through that, we get to build those relationships. Then after the event's over, you know the police officer that you worked with, and you can pray for them and minister to them. And there are lots of opportunities. What we found is the more we started engaging our community, the more our community wanted our engagement, looked forward to our engagement, asked us to do more of it. And then that leads to spiritual conversations and questions. And they know they can come to our church because we're going to love them and help them.
Yeah, it's been really cool because one of the things I've noticed is we're starting to now have local agencies calling and saying, hey, how can we partner together to really impact our community? We know you can bring a great base of volunteers. We have some resources. Let's partner together. And man, it has been a beautiful win-win all the way around. And the gospel gets advanced in just really great ways. Your people get equipped and mobilized. You get a chance to create great conversations and build new relationships with people that we might other get to rub shoulders with. And Jesus really gets lifted up in that whole thing. And it's just so exciting to see and energizing at the same time to come back. I mean, I this last weekend, I'm walking through the hallways and I'm listening to some of our Connect groups talk about their experience at this last Love Local project. And man, it was so great to hear the excitement and the conversations that were happening in the intersections and that they were making. And I know that we've even seen, and we've seen people come as a result of having a conversation with someone, and they've come to church and they're, and going, hey, on top of that, I know this person and that person, and I have lots of other new relationships as a result of that. So it is such a great idea, this triangulation thing. So last question for you guys, and I'd love to get both of you to kind of weigh in a little bit on this is, so, we've talked about this community engagement piece, and it really is a way to leverage our ability to increase our engagement with people who are far from God, and really to help mobilize our people to advance the kingdom in spiritual ways and conversations and so on and so forth. And I'd love to, if someone were just kind of saying, okay, what do we need to do to build a strategy, a community engagement strategy? What would be some things that you guys would suggest? What some steps, some practical nuts and bolts that they might need to do to get that launched?
Yeah, I'll kind of just chime in from the beginning. One of the things that seems really helpful is to find people in your congregation who love Jesus and are passionate about one of those pillars or partners or one of the organizations that you can go and you can mobilize some people to, or you can get some resources to, or you can really just kind of rally around that person and then start that triangulation and all the other things that go along with trying to engage that community. But if there's somebody who's passionate about a certain, hey, ministering in the schools and helping in that, then you can kind of start to rally around those people who are passionate about it, because they're natural champions of that. And normally they have a good relationship with that school or the business because they care so much about it. And so I found that you listening to those people and then finding ways to be able to get people involved. I also, I always talk about the next generation. I find, hey, can we mobilize people, and can we mobilize the next generation too? So is it a place where we can get people out, but not only can we get parents and certain people who have time to do it, but can we get some of our kids and our students out there, and can they mobilize too, to see and understand that, hey, we can serve people outside the church, and we can love people, and we can start conversations outside the church that are spiritual, and they get to see that and experience that and see how you actually do that. And so those are just two things right off the bat that I'm looking for, is that, hey, is there somebody who's passionate about something in the community that we can rally around? And can we involve every generation? Because that's a part of our mission statement too, is to lead every generation to know and follow Jesus. Because I think we can create a culture if we start doing that, not just people who are like, oh yeah, I got time to serve. I like doing community service. It's like, no, we're using it to share the gospel and to have spiritual conversations and to spiritually invest in people. That there's something different about that.
That's good.
Josh, one of the things that you said that I thought was really good is, one place you can start is just who is already in your church that's fired up about an element in your community that you can serve. That's a great spot to look in first. I also think another good thing to do is to look out, and that is to just scout your area. When we say, we talk about pillars and then we talk about partners. So it might be good to list off, what are the pillars in your church, in your community? Are there local schools that you can engage with? Are there police and first responders you can engage with? Are there businesses you can engage with? Are there city government, hospitals? You might just go through and make a list of who those are. If you're in a small community, then you may only have a few of those, but you're larger one, you may have more. But which ones of those are available, and go out and actually meeting these people and finding out who they are, who the principal in the school, in the elementary school. And it really requires you just getting out of the office and meeting these people. I know when we did this in Oklahoma City, I had to get out and meet the principal across the street, and that just began a snowball of community ministry. So I think just getting out and meeting these people that are the pillars of your community is a great thing to do. And then also look for partners. Partners are nonprofits that are in your area. They're already focused on meeting needs. Those communities have some ministry in them to homeless or to single moms or to crisis pregnancy or things like that. Go and meet them and find out what they're doing and how good they're doing. You may not need to reinvent the wheel. You may just need to partner, triangulate with them. They can surface the need. You can get the school involved in your church, and then you're off and running, and you don't have to start something from scratch. So I think looking outward and just scouting, who are my ministry pillars? Who are my ministry partners that I feel good about, I'm in lockstep with theologically and what they're doing? And then you start to think, how can we work together for the greatest good? And so I think that's one thing I would contribute, is scout your area. And then second thing I would say is we like to develop GO teams. GO stands for Gospel Outreach Teams. So let's say we're going to mobilize one of our groups to go paint a house. All right, that's a great project. We're going to be out there. We're triangulating. We got some local businesses, a Lowe's or a Home Depot, that's donating the rollers and donating the paint. Our local partner has said, here's a house that needs it. We're involved. So we got it all going on, and we're out there painting this house, and we're showing them the love of Jesus. We're praying for them. But if everybody is working on the house, then nobody's really taking advantage of talking to the neighbor and talking to people who are walking by and having those spiritual conversations. So we like to have just 2 or 3 people in a gospel outreach team, and their job while the event is going on is only to engage people in spiritual conversations. And then the team gets to gather up and they say, man, hear all the conversations we had. They couldn't believe what we were doing. And they realize it's a whole team effort, right? Some are working, some are talking, some are rolling on paint, some are sharing the gospel, but we're all doing it together as a team. And what we found is you can really make sure it doesn't turn into just social gospel or activism, but it's really about building those bridges and sharing the gospel. And those are just practical things you can do that will really take you to the next level.
Yeah, and one of the things I keep hearing is, how this idea of constantly mobilizing people. And when Jesus was really trying to train up and to raise up his team, his ministry team to know how to fish for men, I keep hearing this come up over and over. This idea of the mobilization of people
Yeah.
within your body. It's on the job training, I guess, so to speak, right? And so can you, because I see that as being a powerful principle to all of this strategy, is that really remember that your outreach is an opportunity to mobilize your people, because you're using it to train them to now leverage that and go into their circles of concern and
Right.
be able to utilize the same things that you're really working them through to do where they live, learn, work, and play. Can you guys unpack that a little bit? Because I think that in an essence is what we're, not only this, but then it influences the way they live out the gospel in their circles of concern.
Yeah. I mean, I love how, Jesus took a fisherman or a doctor or a tax collector, and then now they were the ones that were now like advancing the gospel. They were the disciples that were moving. They were influential in whatever their area was, and they know what was going on in that. And now they are the ones that are taking the gospel to those areas. And so we found that as we have started to build this community engagement, that we're definitely helping meet the needs, but there's these leaders that are in the community that are rising up, that are helping take and mobilize and being what we call team leads. That they're leading these movements into different places, and they're including leadership. They're doing some of the triangulation. They're doing some of the networking and bringing other leaders along and helping these events or helping meet needs even above and beyond what we would what we even asked for, because they get it, because it's different. And so I think that the more that we push people out and we allow leaders to lead out in investing in the community, then when they're sitting by each other listening to a sermon, or they're sitting in a connect group hearing the word together, it just stirs them up more to go, hey, how can we go out and how can we make a bigger difference together with the leaders that we have around us? And not I feel like a lot of times we feel like we almost shame them into going out into the gospel. Like, I need to go out and share more. I need to go out, instead of being a part of a group, a movement of people who are sharing their lives together, sharing their testimony of how God's changed them, and creating that environment when they go out and serve. That's like, man, these people are different. Why are these people different? Why do they love cooking 1,000 hot dogs and hamburgers, and when it's 95 degrees outside in the middle of the day? Like, why are they so happy to do this? Or why are they parking thousands of cars in the middle of the day? Which, just all those things just happen. It's because there's something different, right, in them that's saying, hey, this is important, but they're doing it together. I guess that's the main gist of it. So.
Yeah. Mobilizing people out in the community, I guess, there are times when that can maybe challenging. A couple of things I would just encourage pastors to think about is mobilizing groups that already exist. So if you have Sunday school classes, or you have what we call connect groups, or you already have small groups, we found it just easier to mobilize that group to go as a group and to do a project together than just doing an all call from the platform on Sunday. Hey, I need 200 people, please come. Because people do things in herds, they do things in their group. They're already in community. And so you kind of leverage their influence as the class leader, the group leader. If he goes, yeah, we're going to do it, then everybody will do it together. And you can mobilize a lot more people that way. Plus, that's the community that they're in. That's where they're growing. That's where they're being stretched and fed the word and discipled. And so that's a great team to go out and serve together and then come back and debrief and grow together. So just a very practical thing to do is, when it comes to mobilization, look for the groups that already exist, get the leaders on board, get their vision aligned, and then you'll mobilize more people that way.
It really becomes a way to model for them how to fish for people in their other fishing pools that God's put them in. So
That's right.
it's a great, it's serving the community, but it's also engaging them in low level opportunities, which then will hopefully motivate and compel them to really up their evangelistic temperature in their areas of concern, because now they're trained and mobilized, and they've been doing it and putting it into practice.
Yeah. And, you know, Glenn, I think another thing that's really great is when people start to do this, it becomes contagious. When you tell the story on the platform, you show the video of how many people were out, people instinctively are glad they did that. I mean, it just makes sense that we're doing something good for our community. And that's a very positive thing. But people will start to say, hey, we're not just going to go do that twice a year. We're going to go once a month. You know, they're going to start going off on their own. I mean, Josh can tell you, and they're going to start running with it. And I tell you, we've had ministries, ongoing ministries, grow up out of our church to meet people's needs because it started with one person or a couple of people getting involved, and it just grew and grew and grew. You know, so we're ministering to. We have a whole group of women that minister to women in the sex industry that are, you know, in clubs, and they go out and they in there and minister to them and bring them out. That's an incredible ministry. We have a group that ministers to people that are just being released from prison. And I ran into one of our key leaders Sunday, and he goes, "Man, I need 2 Bibles." I go, "What do you need Bibles for?" And he goes, I'm going to this facility, and then I'm going over to this facility, and I'm teaching them how to read the word. I'm like, man, God bless you. You know, he's not warming the pew on Sunday. He's out there doing the work. Right. Man, how would you like it if you had a bunch of guys like that? I mean, that's
Butch, by the way, I told him to steal 2 of the pew Bibles out of our church.
I caught it.
That's right. That's right, man. That's what they're there for.
I walk out the front door.
That's right.
So I mean,
take all the ones you need.
That's the kind of momentum you're going to build when you start to engage the community. Now, evangelism isn't so scary because you're out there with people. These opportunities are just coming to you. And I think, like Josh said, that it's better to do it together than just individually. And so this is an easy way for them to engage together.
Yeah, this is great. Guys, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys and talk about things that about this whole idea of community engagement. And so thank you again for taking your time. And for those of you who've been watching, we hope that this has been extremely helpful for you. You know, at Disciple First, our heart really is to come alongside and to really help you really develop a culture of disciple making. And if we can be of any help helping you take next steps, please visit our website. It's www.disciplefirst.com. It's a great, there's great resources, links. Feel free to contact us. We'd love to help you think through this piece of community engagement and how you might continue to increase your evangelistic temperature. Because again, Jesus did say to go, and that first verb there in making disciples is you got to be with people who are far from God, right? And being around them and being with them. And you know, Jesus was called the friend of sinners, and we want to be the same thing to people who are distant and far from God, and really help them take next steps to Christ. So again, guys, thank you, and look forward to any further conversations with you people that are out there. Thanks again, and have a great day.